Hello everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to reveal to you the secret to a perfect tarot and oracle pairing. Let's see. Okay, this is obviously my way to a perfect pairing. There is no tarot and oracle pairings manual 101. So this is obviously by my experience. It's also based on my collection, which is rather large. And it's obviously also due to a number of years that I spent together with my decks, getting to know them. And also when it comes to decks that I've only just recently acquired, there's still that sense of knowing what to look for in a pairing that I have developed many years ago. So this is just what I believe is the best way to approach a tarot and oracle pairing. But let me get this out of my chest. I believe that it should be part of everyone's practice. Whether you're a person that is a seasoned tarot reader or collector for many years, or you're a professional tarot reader, or you're just a new one and you just entered this fantastic world and you feel so much enthusiasm for your decks and you want to use them 50 times a day, which is completely understandable. There is something that all of us should be aware of, that tarot reading is something that is, for us tarot readers, it should be part of ourselves. So it should be part of our daily practice. It should be part of a spiritual journey that we want to be in. It should be something we look forward to every day. When it becomes something that it's just a novelty of the moment, it's totally okay if this is you, but please just remember one thing. There always needs to be some kind of a code of conduct or ethics behind it, because if you're reading just for yourself, it's completely fine. But if you're reading for somebody else, you really need to be aware of what you're doing. And so there's a few things that I don't do. For example, I don't give out readings on health and financial matters, because I believe that I'm not an expert and such. And even though I could relay a message from the cards around the energies surrounding that, that I can definitely do, I don't want people coming to me and saying, should I do this surgery or not? I'm not the right person to ask this question. Or should I invest in this investment or not? Again, not the right person. So at the same time, I'm also asking, for example, my students, my members, we're doing a reading course with my members, to be respectful of tarot, and also to understand that there's so much that goes behind the reading. And when you're doing a reading for a person, you pretty much tap into some very intimate kind of energies. And that's one of the reasons why we need to be respectful, but it's also one of the reasons why I highly recommend never to do a reading for someone who doesn't know you're doing a reading for them or on them. Because just ask yourself this: what would you feel? You know, if you knew that someone was doing that to you behind your back, how would you feel? How would you relate to this person? And even if it's someone you don't know, it is something very intimate. And I strongly believe that we as tarot readers, we need to abide to a certain set of rules and ethics. And the reason why I'm saying this in this video is because I highly recommend to someone who's just starting to read tarot and they want to read about that friend that they met in 5th grade and they haven't seen since. Don't do that. I understand completely why you want to use your decks. You're excited about your decks. You may have a new deck and you want to work with it. Wonderful. Do some tarot pairings instead. You know, look and get to know your deck by doing something other than, you know, tapping into somebody else's energies without even telling them and without their consent. So consent is one of the key words. So hopefully I am going to show you today what I believe is my thought process behind deciding what decks go together. and hopefully I will make it exciting for you to try as well. So I wanted to start first and foremost with the obvious, and the obvious for me is when you have two decks, one is a tarot deck and one is an oracle deck by the same creator. Like in this case, let me just zoom in. So what do we have here? We have the Star Seeker Tarot by Nick Ferrada and the Star Seeker Oracle by Nick Ferrada. So obviously what we have is the author, the same creator. Maybe they produce one deck first and then the other one. Maybe there's years of gap between the two decks, maybe not so many years. In this case, I believe there's a few years between the Star Seeker Tarot and the Oracle. And I really love these two decks. I love them together, and I know that there's a lot of people out there, and I completely respect them, that they say that this is not enough of a challenge. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the basics, and from the basics of Tarot and Oracle decks pairings, we're just going to go up and build up towards something a little bit more complex. So in the basics, you guessed it, it's fine to pair up Tarot and Oracle decks from the same creator, and yes, they will have the same art style and probably most likely also the same color palette. Is that wrong? No, it's not wrong. So let's have a look at these two decks together, because let me tell you, on top of everything, I actually really like these two. I think that because there was I don't want to say huge gap between the Tarot and the Oracle deck, but there was a gap of a few years. That might also mean that the artist, the artistic soul of the creator of the deck has actually evolved, and they may have reached a different kind of art production. Yeah, okay, definitely the art style is the same, and and in some cases you will see that there's not a lot of difference between the production of the decks as well, and that I actually really appreciate, because if the Oracle deck had been completely different with, I don't know, borderless or with black borders, really obnoxious and large white borders, or the font in this case is different, which is not my favorite, but I kind of get it, and it's not as different in size, so it's just different the type of font, but the size is pretty similar. So I would say that I'm okay with that. And even if it were a completely different size, there's some things that actually hurt me more than others, and the font size is not necessarily one of the worst things that happen. So in this case, just go with it. This is a practice run. This is for you to see and to understand if you like pairing up decks that have a similar color palette, that have a similar art style. And this, because these have been created by the same creator, it is very likely that they probably share the same vibes and energies, and this is totally fine. And it's also some kind of a practice for you to be able to start reading a pair. Because let me tell you, when I started reading a pair for myself, I could kind of fool myself into believing that I knew that what I was doing. But when I started filming pairings for YouTube, that was really challenging, because actually starting to talk about what you see, reading out the names, the title of the tarot deck and the keywords on the oracle deck, that was not the difficult part. You're just reading. It's the interpretation that really is challenging when you're filming this, and you have to keep going, you have to talk, and you're in front of a camera. You kind of start second guessing yourself and trying to understand whether what you're saying makes sense. Does it make sense just to me? Does it make sense to everyone else? What would you, the subscribers, the viewers, think about these two decks when I'm telling you something that maybe doesn't resonate with you? But when I am at that stage, should I change what I'm saying just to make it more resonating, or should I just go with what I feel is right? That is the challenge, trust me, and not many people will tell you this, and even less so tarot and oracle readers on YouTube will tell you this. It is difficult, at least it's difficult for me. Maybe you're a tarot tuber and it comes totally naturally for you, and I admire you. It has become slightly easier for me, after these 2.5 years or almost 2.5 years that I'm on YouTube. But at the beginning, I kept on have to editing out stuff and second guessing myself, and it was not good. And so for a few months, I actually stopped. Sorry, all of this to show you that this is rather easy when you have a combination like this, the lovers and ritual. Of course, it's easy because, ritual is something that you do to create a meaningful bond. And guess what? One of the keywords with the lovers card is the union. But at the same time, you also do a ritual when you need assistance, you seek guidance. And so the lovers is also reflecting that sense of making a choice and actually being invested in this choice, because it's a rather important one. So you have two aspects to this, and this is rather easy when it's two cards like this. But what happens, there you go, what happens when you have the creator, which is not necessarily a keyword to me, that is more like an archetype, and the Three of Wands, and you're filming a video for YouTube, and people really rely on you because you've been told time and again that people appreciate your pairings, and now you don't know what to say. I actually do know what to say. It's just that after doing it so many times, it comes to you. Trust me, hang in there. It's just when I look at the Three of Wands, for me, it's the card of daring. It's the card of really looking at the horizon and thinking that is where you want to be, expanding your mind, expanding also your comfort zone, and knowing that getting out of your comfort zone is the very first thing, and it's an act of love, but it's also an act of creation. So obviously when you look at the creator, that makes perfect sense. So just take agency of your expanding your horizon. Don't just go outside of your comfort zone because you just feel like you want to do it. Do it with a purpose. Become the creator. So as you can see, you can build up. You can build up with these, oh sorry, was this meant to be here? Oh yes, of course, yeah, I forgot. So there's a number of cards that are actually just affirmations in the Oracle deck. Which is, totally fine. I don't mind that. As a matter of fact, you know what? When something like this happens, you may want to talk about it as well. So we got the High Priestess, and I embrace the mysteries of life. I release the need to know. This is really beautiful when you pair it up with the High Priestess, because the High Priestess is the custodian of all facts. She is the custodian of all memories. And so guess what? She releases the need to know because it's part of herself. She's the custodian of memory, so she doesn't need to know. She has to release that because it is ingrained in her texture, in her soul. And she embraces the mysteries of life because she consciously, and that is something that I love to say about the High Priestess, it's the same kind of reasoning that I always tell you when I see the Queen of Swords. Yes, the Queen of Swords is the Queen of Air. Yes, she's all in her mind. Yes, she's always seen between black and white. She consciously decides to be compassionate. It is a choice. It's not easy for the Queen of Swords, but she consciously decides to be compassionate. The High Priestess, she consciously decides to still be excited and embracing the mysteries, even though technically speaking for her there shouldn't be any mysteries, because she is the custodian of all things. So you see how it becomes beautiful. It is something that the star with the breakthrough, finally you're receiving guidance at last. I am unafraid and free. It is a blessing to be me with the Eight of Cups. I mean, some of these things are even too easy. Of course, I want to be free. I need to release something that is broken and I need to leave it behind. And so it's a blessing to be me because I finally broke the chain and just left. So as you can see, when you get the hang of it, it actually is really beautiful. It's a liberating kind of practice. And I highly recommend it because it will enrich your spiritual practice. It will enrich your journey if this is what you're doing with tarot, but it will make you a so much better reader you have no idea. This will really fine-tune your reading skills. It will offer you different angles to read the tarot card, and that's amazing. Yes, Anguish with the Two of Swords. Up until now, we always consider the Two of Swords as someone who they have no information available, and the time is ticking and the clock is ticking, and they have to make a decision and they cannot, because they're blindfolded. They don't have access to what's in front of them. They're sitting between a rock and a hard place, and there's that anguish, the sense of anguish that really prevents them to maybe just take a deep breath and just try and understand what's going on here. So it will make you the King of Wands with burden. This looks like a 10 of Wands to me. And why is it still there? Why is it still with the King? The King is at the top of the evolution scale when we're looking at the core cards in the suit of Wands. So why is there still burden? They technically should have completed that sense of taking everything onto their shoulders. Maybe because this King, and to be honest, to me, this King looks like he's a bit burdened because it's still kind of leaning forward. I don't know whether it's just me or maybe it's just the cat, you know, because perching on top of the shoulders is not necessarily lightweight. But maybe the King of Wands, instead of being the person who's the entrepreneur, who has mastered the use of fire for creation, sometimes that can also be seen as a burden. Sometimes people's expectation, people who are part of our circle, expecting from us that we're always the one that come up with a solution, honestly, that can be a bit exhausting. And it is a burden. And so you start talking about that. And you got the Chariot and alone, and maybe this is a warning. Maybe, yes, you've been conquering something, you've been finishing the project, you've been moving, you win something, but let's not forget, and this is like the caveat and the warning of the Six of Wands. Yeah, you win, but you need to acknowledge the people who helped you get that. So, you know, you're alone if you're not counting your blessings and your resources. And the Seven of Wands in the mirror. Well, if you're finding yourself in a situation in which everyone is attacking you, probably you did something wrong. So look at yourself in the mirror. What have you done? So I just love going through the cards like this. This is one of my favorite things to do when the pairings are working so well. It makes me happy, and I hope it makes you guys happy too. So if this is very useful to you, you know, pairing tarot and oracle decks from the same creator, if this is resulting as a very useful exercise to you, then who is saying not to do that? Why would you not do that? Because you need more challenge? You can challenge yourself. The next time you can choose something completely different, and that is totally fine as well. So now what I wanted to show you is another pairing that is not by the same creator. These two decks are not by the same creator, but the art style and the colors and the vibe and the energy are practically the same. And I have seen that immediately as soon as I was looking at an oracle deck. I already had the tarot deck, and I'm talking about these two here. So this is the Under the Oak Tarot by Ofrida and Strega delle Mele, published by Lo Scarabeo, and this is the Intuition Oracle by Rebecca Lipp and Craig Phillips. As you can see, not the same authors, not the same, obviously this is a tarot deck and this is an oracle deck, but let's say not even the same publisher, because this is published by Bound Books, which is an imprint from Wilding Books. Sorry, I find that fascinating how they refer to their own let's say affiliates as with different names. It's just, I'm learning new words. Imprint, I didn't know. Okay, so let's have a look, because these two are really, really powerful together. Really powerful together, to the point that I remember actually showing you this pairing months ago for the first time, and I kind of got emotional because it was really speaking to me, and I really appreciate when that happens. And it is a way for me and for all of us as tarot readers and collectors alike to really enjoy using our decks and not just leaving them there on the shelf, or, you know, just to gather dust, waiting for someone to ask for a reading and ask for those decks. You really don't have to wait for that. You can use your decks every day. And again, let me repeat this. I really want to point this out to all of you who are so enthusiastic about your decks, that you really love using them and you use them 100 times a day, and that's lovely and it's so much fun. And I know, because I've been through that phase myself as well. But please always be respectful. It's not like tossing a coin. Tarot has hundreds of years of history and tradition, and there are ethical values to be followed. I know that I'm repeating myself, but look at this. Look at this. This is absolutely incredible. When I look at these pairings with these two decks together, it's just mind-blowing to me. Look at the crest. It looks like a lion, and this is also like a lion, even though it's not. I know that it's an archetypal, or rather a mythological figure. I want to say chimera. I'm probably completely wrong. The chimera, there should be an eagle in here somewhere, and there isn't. I forgot, so let me just double check in the guidebook, because now I feel like I've said something stupid and I want to correct myself. But this is the Empress, and look at how similar these two cards are, in the sense that we have this sense of fire going around us, right? And it looks like it's a lion's mane, and we got it on both of them. So the Empress, the fertility stone behind her stand the statue of Demeter. Yeah, we've known Demeter here. She's in the kingdom of abundance, prosperity and growth. Like a field of dandelions. Yeah, we got the dandelions here. The golden glow of her blessing shines brightly. Everything around exudes beauty, clarity and authority. The Empress invites you to keep your feet firmly grounded, to be strong and responsible. So we don't have that. Obviously, we don't have a description of, and maybe I'm completely wrong. It's just that to me, this looks like a very specific mythological figure. In any case, let me just move on. So we've got these two cards that look so beautiful together, and it feels like they really express a concept here. There is the fulgur and the shining of the mane in both these characters, and one is the sun and the other one is the Empress. And it's really telling us that there's these two cosmic energies at play in this case. And we could even read the Sun card, which is from the Oracle. So this is not the actual Sun card from the Tarot, but we could read the same way. But to me, when I choose to look at the pairing, I actually discarded that immediately, because this is not the way in which I would read, or I would imagine, the Sun card from the Tarot, with that sense of joy. But it's a very ephemeral joy, and it's something very related to time, very time constrained. This to me is power. So the power of the sun, the illuminating power of the sun, the warming power of the sun, the creative power of the sun. With the creative power of the Empress, we're talking about some interesting energies here. And synchronicities with the Hierophant, the Goddess with the Page of Cups, the Spirit Guides with the World. Amazing, because it looks like they are both being framed by flowers or branches in both cases. So this is incredible, because to me it really gives you, let's say, it is a further challenge. It is one step up from pairing up two decks by the same creator, but because they have so many similarities that it's almost incredible. This will give you the possibility to still elaborate a lot on the message by recognizing the elements that are actually common to both the cards. So in here we see this immersion in the water by the Hanged One, and there is also this water and immersion in the water in the Pause card. And obviously the Hanged One also reminds us of taking a break, because they're just shifting perspective. So they're entering something that they don't know, they don't recognize that yet. And then obviously it might mean that they need to stop for a moment, for example. An obstacle with the Four of Swords, and perhaps there is this sense of needing the healing, because let's not forget where the Four of Swords comes from. It comes from the Three of Swords, which is the overwhelm of the mind. That can also signify the overwhelm of the heart, because guess what? In the Two of Swords, we couldn't make the choice. So we lost the possibility to choose. That is overwhelming to us. Now we need to heal, we need to rest. We cannot do that because we are called to do something. And look at the thorns here, they look like daggers as well. So there is the sense of going back and forth that I really love between these two decks, that there is a very strong communication happening. It's not just, and I would say probably it's more from the images, that sense of creation of bridges, you know, between the cards. These echoes and resonances that we can see are definitely more communicating to you through the images, especially when you look at the images from the Oracle deck rather than from the title or the keyword on the Oracle. Sometimes you can use that too, of course, forgive with the Queen of Wands. Queen of Wands that is always performing. Why is she performing? Sometimes the Queen of Wands also points to some kind of mental discomfort, as in not being comfortable with ourselves, and so that's why we're performing for others, because we need their approval. We need to see our confidence reflected in their own approval. Release and forgive that, accept yourself, and so find that balance. Perform for yourself, not for others. So this is really beautiful, give and receive with the Eight of Swords. Perhaps the moment in which you find yourself stuck and you're prisoner in a case of your own making is because you have stopped doing this sense of going and back and forth, giving and receiving. It's a Six of Pentacles here. It's not just because you're giving out that you can free yourself. You also need to receive back from others. Sometimes the energy that you give to others, you need to be aware and you need to be open to receive it back. And that's the moment in which you start releasing yourself. Innocence with the Seven of Cups. We are in front of so much corruption in the Seven of Cups many times. That's the reason why we cannot choose, and we feel like we're awkward because the innocence of the Six of Cups has been abandoned and we need to move on. So do you see how much you can talk about these cards when you read them together? And this is, as I said, this is already a step further. So you're not pairing up a Tarot and Oracle deck by the same creator. You're already challenging yourself at least a little bit, even though, as you can see, seriously, the colors are the same, the vibes are the same, the art style is very similar. So I highly recommend when you want to dial it up a notch and you want to challenge yourself a bit more, still choose Tarot and Oracle decks that have a very similar color palette, a very similar art style, and also, let's say, also vibes and energies, because it will still function really well as a trial and error, let's say, as a practice run. But at the same time, you're also gaining a little bit of confidence because you know that you're doing something that is not the easiest thing to do. And that would definitely give you some confidence. You will have noticed that I'm keeping this finger straight. It's because I don't want to touch the card with this finger because I burned myself cooking last night. And I have to put some lotion, and lotion on cardstock is just, it's like rust to a boat. You don't want to put lotion onto, especially the kind of greasy lotion that you need on a burn wound, because that would transfer very easily onto the cardstock. And unless it's extremely, it's a cardstock that is really glossy, so it has one very thick double coat top finish with a repelling material. It will still go through and it will form really hideous stains. So I really don't want that to happen. But it is very painful still, so I kind of have to, there's no two ways around that, I had to put it on. So, as I was saying, this is a little bit more of a challenge. Something that is even more of a challenge is pairing up two decks that remind, that is the keyword, remind you of each other. So in this case, because this is the month in which we're still studying the Light Seer Stars and we're getting really close to the live, I think we still have to do the Suit of Pentacles next week, and then I'll do a wrap up, and then we'll do a live video. So if you want to join us, it's by the way, if you want to join us, the Fairlight members, which is the basic level of my membership, which is only at $2.99 Australians per month, so it's much less than a coffee. They also, so the Fairlight members also have access to the live, so it is for everyone. The live is for everyone. So we're doing the Light Seers Tarot, and I received a lot of requests from my members to talk about how I would choose an oracle deck to pair up with the Light Seers Tarot. And I want to show you, and by the way, this is one of my favorite bags from the Tarot Bag Ladies, absolutely gorgeous. And this is the Dark Damsel, Dark Moon Damsel. I am so sorry, I don't have the title of this deck, and I know that a few of you told me the first time that I introduced this deck. I believe it's the Dark Moon Damsel, but I could be wrong. In any case, it's a combination of those three words put together. And I've also realized that there's another deck. I believe that it's from Make Playing Cards. I could be wrong, it could be Gamecrafter. I bought it secondhand, that's why I don't have first-hand knowledge. I believe that there's also a black and white deck, if I'm not wrong. I believe I've seen it. And this is obviously a very interesting deck because, as the name goes, you know, Dark Moon Damsel, whether it's in that order or not, we're looking at something that reminds us of a certain type of perhaps shadowy kind of energies, which is completely okay. By the way, I just realized I haven't shuffle the lights here, sorry about that, because we're doing, obviously I'm publishing videos and also giving out PDF material to my members in order to study this deck. And so when I'm doing the video, I need the cards to be in order, obviously, to go through the we're doing the minors. So I believe this week, no, last week we just done the Suit of Swords, but that wasn't a video, that was just material. And trust me, it's a lot of material because for each and every card I come up with all of the symbols on the card, the significance. And for example, whenever there are runes, I explain what the rune means. Whenever there are chakras, I talk about chakras. Whenever there are sacred geometry, there's a lot of sacred geometry in the Light Seers Tarot. Then I'll talk about sacred geometry and so on and so forth, and symbols and alchemy and everything. So there's a lot to study when it comes to this deck. I honestly surprised even myself because I was kind of, I thought that I knew this deck, because when you have a deck and you use it for so long, you think you know it, but actually studying it gave me a completely different perspective on this deck. So when it comes to these two and the pairing with these two, what I would like you to invite you to do is to focus on the energies and the vibes, because when it comes to the art style, I think we might agree that even though it's not completely the opposite, we're not standing at the two extreme of a spectrum, but it's not necessarily the same art style. When it comes to the color palette, even though, again, I cannot say that we're completely in two different planets here when it comes to the color palette, we're not exactly in the vicinity. So I would definitely recommend for you to focus on the keywords. And so this is something that really gives me the possibility to tell you how I focus on the keywords. So, and that's one of the reasons why it is a deal breaker for me when an oracle deck doesn't have keywords, because that's what I do when I do pairings. I immediately read the keyword. So in this case, what do we have? Fragile. Okay, and then I look at the image. It's a really beautiful image of a flower. And what I'm thinking is, because I need to make a connection between the image that I'm seeing and the keyword, which is fragile, I'm kind of thinking that these spots, dots, however you want to call them, around the flower are probably snowflakes. So this is telling me that perhaps, and I'm not reading the guidebook, by the way, this is literally my intuition or my deduction by looking at the card. So there might be fragility at stake here because the flower is growing up in a very inhospitable environment. It might be really cold, it might be snow, there might be ice around there. So there is the fragility of life here, because obviously we may not be where we're supposed to be, but we still have to do something about it. And at the end of the day, being fragile doesn't mean always being let's say, vulnerable or always losing, or always being defeated. We can be fragile and we can still endure something. So when I am happy with the way in which I read the card of the central card, so coming from the Oracle deck, I look at what the tarot cards are and try and make the connection. So we got the Queen of Cups and the Ace of Swords. And I love this because obviously I immediately make this connection. What is the fragility? What is the one fragile aspect of the Queen of Cups? Perhaps the mind, the thoughts, because obviously we're looking at the Ace of Swords. And the Ace of Swords is the new project. It's something that really starts in your mind and then eventually may take your heart. But that is something that may not be in the realm of expertise of the Queen of Cups, because she's the mystic, she's the empath, she's the one that is nurturing, that is always understanding the feelings and mastering her own feelings. But at the same time, sometimes when the heart doesn't go the same way as the mind, there might be this disconnection. There might be this sense of not recognizing yourself. And so that's where her fragility lies. And that's where you need to look at, and that's how you need to read this too. So this situation for me tells me that if you are a Queen of Cups, if the Queen of Cups is your significator, pay attention to your mind sometimes, because it might tell you things that your heart doesn't know yet, and that's your weakest spot, and you need to endure that and you need to cultivate that in order to protect this flower. So as you can see, there is a process. I'm not just blubbering, I'm not just saying anything that comes to my mind. Boxed in, I love this, boxed in with the Page of Swords and the Ace of Wands. Use the energy, the sparking energy, the fire energy of the Ace of Wands to release yourself from this boxed in. The boxed in is not being able to move forward in your thinking. But this is the Page of Swords, and the Page of Swords can sometimes feel boxed in. Why? Because they're always asking the why of things. They're always marveling at how things work. But that can actually make you feel stuck, because you're not advancing, and you need to advance. That is your role in your life, is to advance, to evolve. So a Page of Swords needs to become the Knight of Swords, who also needs to become a Queen of Swords. And some of us get stuck at the Page state, which is fine, but then you will be boxed in. So use the fire, use the passion, perhaps rely on your passion, not just on your mind sometimes. So as I said, I hope that you will notice that this makes me really happy when I'm doing these kind of things. It is just that it's almost as if it were for me, that I am a Queen of Swords at the end of the day. It makes me happy because it feels like I'm passing a test. I am challenging myself. I am trying and ascertain whether I still got it. I can still read tarot and oracle decks together. Really, really love these two together. But as you can see, it is a little bit more of a challenging pairing because it does not have necessarily the same art style, but it still really works. And that's what I invite you to do once you feel like you can move on from two decks that are very, very similar. Then try a pairing that doesn't necessarily feel like it should be working, but you try it out and it works, and that will make you even more happy, trust me, because it's almost as if it was your own creation. And then I wanted to, let's go with this one. So basically these two decks together, also incredibly proud of this pairing, because I believe that I was one of the first ones, if not the first one, that actually recommended or suggested this pairing. So this is the Universal Folk Oracle by Anita Variety, and this is the Honasa House Tarot, and this is, I believe, the 7th edition, which I put also in this really beautiful Tarot Bag Ladies bag. Really, I believe that this one was actually recommended, this pairing, and I believe that this is a very special size of bag because it fits this one. Otherwise, a standard tarot bag would not have fit. And so here we go. So I do still open this one without removing the seal. So I open it from the bottom, and it still works, so you know, I think I will just keep on doing that. So these two are incredible, because the only thing that originally made me think that they would pair really nicely together were the predominant colors. So when it comes to, let me just level them up, because that is something that really does my head in when they're not at the same level. So when it comes to the color theory, so if you are an art major, you will know what color theory is. I am not. The only time in which I had to start a little bit of color theory was together with composition for photography. And so I kind of retained a few concepts from color theory, but that is much more complicated than I would be able to remember. But what I can tell you is that sometimes there is a combination of colors that you wouldn't expect to actually work out. Sometimes you really work well with adjacent colors, and I'm now thinking that adjacent is not the correct term, so please excuse me. If you are an art major, you will know what I'm talking about. So in the color spectrum, let's say, there are colors that are there are coming after one, coming after the other, so they are sequential, let's say. Think about orange and red, or yellow and orange. Okay, so those to me look like they are adjacent colors because they are close one to the other in the color spectrum. And sometimes those pair up really nicely. However, sometimes if you want to go bold, there's also the possibility to use complementary colors as pairing. So when you look at the color spectrum, you will, and it's the wheel, you will pair up, for example, an orangey, peachy orangey color with a teal blue color, because they are at the opposite of the spectrum. Again, please excuse me, because I did not start this conversation wanting to explain to you how the color theory works, because I'm not an expert and I really barely remember anything, but something was etched into my mind that I needed to understand how colors work well together. And these two decks have that. There is a combination of colors that just works. It works really well. Obviously, when you have something else that works really well, like for example the spiral on the hair of the character in the Oracle deck, and also the spiral of the smoke coming out of this fire in the Tarot deck, obviously you have an additional element that works. But primarily, we're really talking about colors here. The vibes of these two decks, you can work them out together when there's directionality. For example, when one of the character in the card looks at the other character in the other card, there is directionality, there is this sense of bonding, or they could also be looking away from each other, so obviously you need to read it in a different way. So there will be a number of things that you need to work on in order to make this pairing a good one. It's not immediate, it's not automatic, as we've seen earlier. Yes, the colors really look like they're complementing each other, but when you start reading, especially when you focus on the Oracle deck, because as you can see here, there's the title, but there's also 3 or 4 keywords. So we got compassion, but we also have nurture, giving, love, life. Do they all make sense? Absolutely. Do you need to use all of them in order to make a pairing? No. As a matter of fact, I highly recommend using only one. Do you want to focus on compassion? This is the 6 of Swords. So do we focus on compassion? With the 6 of Swords is obviously the card that tells you about this journey you have to embark upon, but you don't necessarily want to, but you really need to step away from a situation that is hurting you, and you hope for a better future. There is this sense of transaction, there is a sense of also transformation and moving on. What do we see here in the compassion card that could, be in the same planet as, moving on, transition, transaction, going to a better place, etc. Nurture, giving, love, life. Well, life, to me, that really resonates, because life is a 6 of Swords. There's no two ways around that. We may embellish it. We may try and fool ourselves into believing that it's a happy boat, the one that traverses the river. But it's a transaction anyway. moving on sometimes is painful, but we have to do it. And so that is part of life. And that after that, we can add up. We can add up compassion, because obviously, I remember I was actually looking at the before tarot for a video recently, and the Six of Swords shows you the moment before that is immortalized in the traditional WS for the Six of Swords, but it shows you that the panther, so the person who's driving the boat, that is generally seen as very ruthless and merciless and just doing his job by ferrying these characters onto the other shore, is actually helping out one of the characters to get into the boat. So there is this sense of compassion also to the ones that are helping us in this transaction in life. So you can build, as you can see, if you are a writer, you will notice it's world building. It is literally no more, no less than world building, except that you're doing that in a very visual way, or at least you're doing that by starting from a visual aid, which obviously are the cards, and then you read the words and you put them together. And that is a fantastic way to do a pairing, by the way. It is, as a matter of fact, even more of a challenge than the other pairings that we've seen so far. So obviously it is something that you need to be comfortable with, because if it doesn't work, just don't be scared of leaving it aside. If it doesn't work, and so be it. But in any case, this is really beautiful pairing as well, for a number of reasons. And as I said, I know that there will be, or maybe there already is, it's just that I haven't bought it yet, a Universal Folk Tarot, I believe there is, by the same creator, obviously. And so that would be probably a very nice pairing as well. And so if you do have those two decks, let me know in the comments below if you pair them up together or not, because there might be something that might result very interesting to me, and so I might want to try it out. And last, I've got two more pairings. So one of them is a little bit of a dare. So I'm daring you, if you're doing this kind of exercise and if you're following me in this adventure of pairing, I dare you pairing up a bit of a strange combination. Don't be scared of pairing up two tarot decks together, because they may actually work. And as a matter of fact, for some tarot decks, it might be your only option. So I've got the Yokai Yochi here, and I've got this one here with another one of the Tarot Bag Ladies, which is, I don't know why, but it's full of my hair. Moving on. So this one is the Pocket of Pierce Tarot. So it's a tarot deck. However, because it's so very special, it's so very unique, I don't use it as a tarot deck. I use it as an oracle deck, and I believe that I'm not entirely crazy by doing that, because every time that I say this on my channel, there's a lot of people saying that they do the same, and that probably depends on the fact that there's a lot of keywords and what on the cards. And what may appear as if it were keywords that you can eventually forcing yourself to associate with the meaning of a tarot card. At the end of the day, even the, let's say, the majors have been renamed. You have a renaming of the suits in this deck, and you also have a renaming of the court cards. And what else? And I think that's it. But there's so many different things that either you work just with this deck for a while and you get acquainted with all of these renaming and different perspective as well, or if you want to use it without having too much to focus on it, you can pair it up, for example, with the Yokai Yochi. This is a very difficult deck to pair up with because it's got a very unique color palette. Also the theme is obviously very unique, but at the same time, me being me and loving Japan as much as I do, and by the way, we bought the tickets, we're going to Japan again. I cannot wait. This will be the 5th time that my husband and I are going to Japan, so I'm very, very excited. And also I'll be going to the Tokyo Tarot Museum, guys, so stay tuned. Well, it won't be in a month's time, but stay tuned because I'm going to ask them for permission to film. So one of my videos could be filmed from the Tokyo Tarot Museum, which is Probably, to my knowledge, one of the most exciting tarot museums in the world. So we will have a look. So last year I went to the Tarot Museum in Vietnam, and that was incredibly wonderful, really a great experience for me. But the Tokyo Tarot Museum is just one of my bucket list experiences to do, because I'm really excited about it. So sorry that I just, went off on a tangent here, but as I was saying, me being me, I have a lot of yokai oracle decks. I do, but they don't look at all like this tarot deck, and they don't actually pair up well. Trust me, I've tried. They don't pair up well together. So there's a number of other decks that will come out at the end of the year. There's another oracle deck, I believe, based on yokais, that will come up towards September, October, and I cannot wait to try that out. But again, by judging by the 3 or 4 images that I could find on Amazon, it doesn't have the same color palette, it doesn't have the same art style, and but this is cute. These two together, absolutely fantastic. And let me tell you, the reason why I really love pairing these two together is that they have a very similar tone when it comes to color palette. They have very similar art style, but also there's a few elements that are recurring between the two. So the eyeballs, for example, in the Ace of Cups, and this is technically the Seven of Eyes. I just completely decide to ignore it, and I just look at the keywords that are at the bottom of the card. So daydreaming, unrealistic, and romance. So obviously there is romance in the sense of the Ace of Cups is talking about perhaps a new romance, you never know. And the Three of Cups with restricted indecision and fear. Well, there is something that you can see if you turn the Three of Cups upside down. There is fear when there is disconnection in your group of friends. This is the growth in the suit of the heart, in the suit of feelings, for example. So obviously there might be that sense of indecision and fear. And I believe that I just now realized that I should have probably shuffled the Yokai Yochi Tarot. My apologies for that. I did not actually remember that I had put it back in order, because I think I was filming something and I needed it to back in order. But it's fine. What I am daring you to do, even if you don't have these two decks, take one tarot deck or start with an oracle deck, it doesn't matter. But try out a pairing that is a little bit of a dare, that you don't think is going to work, and just keep on doing that until you find something that actually works. And that will be your baby, because this is my creation. This is literally something that I put together, and I'm very happy about the way that these two works together. So that is my dare to you. If you're following through with this video, if you want to learn how to combine, sorry, there is a very noisy motorcycle. We normally don't have a lot of motorcycle in this area. Not that I'm against it. Some of them are really, really cool. It's just that they are quite noisy. So as I was saying, I forgot what I was saying now. So I was talking about the Yokai Yochi, I was talking about the Pocket of Ears. Just, try something that is not necessarily something you think would work. And at the end of the day, if it does, you feel like you're really mastering this art of pairing stuff up together. So the last one is the most difficult one, because it starts with the intention. So there's a lot of work that goes behind finding the right decks to be pairing up for this type of practice. And let me just zoom out, because it is I'm going to show you all of the decks together. And so what have we got here? We've got I need to flip them over. So we've got the True Black Tarot and the Ephemera Tarot by Arthur Wang, and these two are amazing. Yes, these are basically the same tarot deck, but the Ephemera one is the light one and the True Black is the dark one. It is the same creator, they have the same art style, absolutely very cosmic vibe in both of them. I wouldn't say though that they have the same kind of energy, because this one is definitely a light deck and this one is definitely a shadow deck for me, for my type of work and in my practice. Having these two decks have always made me curious, as in, can I use them together? Can I come up with a structure that will let me use them almost as if they were the two different aspects of the same thing? And so when I think about two different aspects of the same thing, I think about a mirror. And so when Sunshine Connolly came out, thanks to the artwork of Odonovan, came out with the Soul Mirror Oracle released by Blue Angel, I tried these three together and oh my god, so seriously, these three are absolutely fantastic. And I believe that it really is made possible because the Oracle deck has got this duality. So for each and every one of these cards, there's not just the image, there will be a title, and then there will be two keywords, and those two keywords will not be similar, they will be opposites. So one of them is recalling darkness and one is talking to you about light. So obviously, when you put these together, these three together, you will have the perfect combination. So let me just take these two out, because obviously we need to see this in action. And the only thing that you need to do is leveling the decks out, because obviously we have less cards when it comes to the Oracle deck, but it's totally fine because it's not like we have 20 cards or something. We still have a decent number of cards. And by the way, let me just say, I also recently talked about another deck by Odonovan, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's, sorry, I'm just looking at these cards thinking why were they on the side. That's okay, doesn't matter. So the latest deck, also released by Blue Angel, with the creator as Odonovan, is the Feminine Myths Oracle, which by the way pairs up really nicely with the Soul Mirror Oracle. And I am pairing it because I do need a tarot deck at a certain point, you probably do. I pair it up with the Solar Logos tarot, and it's just fantastic. But now we're talking about something else. So let me just level them out, because otherwise my analytical brain would just flip. It's one of the problems of having an analytical brain. And wow, oh, sorry, I'm just already going, wow. Okay, so as you can see here, there's, let me just shuffle this one because I believe that I actually used it probably in one of my latest videos, because I was showing this pair with the Feminine Myths Oracle and the Solar Logos and the Soul Mirror. And it was really beautiful, it made really much sense, but I did not shuffle the deck after I used it for that pairing. So this one is very intentional. And we need to understand this, because when we're looking at integrating tarot oracle pairings into our practice, this is something that we really need to master. So I wouldn't recommend it at the beginning of your journey. If you're only just starting pairing up tarot oracle decks, don't start immediately with making it part of your practice. First is for you to understand what you like, as I was saying at the beginning of this video, and then you fine-tune your skills, you understand how to read the cards, you understand how to talk about them, and then you start using them in your practice in this way, for example. So the Wish card has the two keywords as despairing and hopeful. Obviously those are the two ways, the shadow way of looking at a wish, because you are despairing, and the light way to look at a wish, so hopeful. So hopeful with crescendo, and despairing with the tower. I don't think it's, you know, there's always something that you can build up on that, because it definitely tells you a story. And then you got the portal with open and closed. Open with the Six of Wands. You're winning at this point, so take advantage of that. This portal is open for you, and you finally reached it. But when it's closed, it's also talking to you about the King of Cups, and perhaps the Lord of Hades tells you that this portal is not always open. There are some rules that cannot be broken. Hades is not open to the people that are inside Hades, and so the Lord of Hades will be the one that keeps it closed. And so sometimes there is this impossibility to reopen some things. Some wounds need to stay closed. So as you can see, it does tend to become a very, I wouldn't say emotional yet, but it can become very emotional. So we got cultivation with neglected and nurtured. So neglected with the Chariot and nurtured with the 8 of coins or pentacles. So obviously there is this sense of nurturing your work and really rely on it and really giving it all that you've got. And when we talk about neglected, is the way in which the Chariot sometimes, as we said earlier, may see you as the only one that has crossed the line, but you still neglect to credit all the work of all the ones that have been helping you crossing that line. So there is perceptive with, the 3 of Wands and the Keeper. So perceptive with oblivious and the 3 of Wands, and aware and the Keeper. And so there is... let me tell you, there is one thing that I wanted to point out, and I didn't have time. There is a renaming. When it comes to the FME Tarot, there is a renaming of the majors. I believe all of them have been renamed, and if not all of them, then possibly 99% of them. Some of them are really obvious. The Alchemist is obviously the Magician, because we do see that as a renaming for the Magician in many decks. So then when you look at the True Black Tarot doesn't have renaming, so that is slightly easier to work with. So when you want to actually use these 3 decks in a pairing, just remind yourself to brush up on your knowledge of the renaming of the majors in the FME Tarot, because otherwise that can actually create a little bit of a disconnection in the flow when you're talking. If you have to stop for a second and think about what that card means, what is ovation, for example, you can choose to focus on the let's say the keyword or what the word ovation means to you, and you can work with that. Absolutely not saying that you can't, but at the same time you might want, if you're using it as a tarot deck, then you might want to know already what the images are referring to, what the cards are referring to. So obviously really beautiful deck overall. I am not even going to discuss that. I know that there's a lot of people that think that the characters that are depicted in both the tarot decks are too picture perfect, let's call them like that. I strongly believe that these are archetypes. These are not human beings, so as such they don't necessarily need to show anything flawed. Of course human beings are flawed, and of course I want to see representation in a tarot deck. However, these to me are archetypes. They are energies. They are not humans. So I don't mind that there is absolutely no diversity here. It's fine for me. I don't seek, that is not something that I seek. I do, however, believe that the minors are incredibly beautiful, even though, yes, they are slightly beepish, as you can see, but they are incredibly beautiful. It's almost as if there was a very subtle choice in both the decks. So in the True Black Tarot, for example, there is a choice of using just one ray of light, and that is illuminating a particular aspect of the symbol in the card. And when it comes to it's almost the opposite when it comes to the FME Tarot, because you have a light all around it. And so the way in which you still put focus on the card is by showing different areas, perhaps with darker colors sometimes, or with different colors. For example, the lavender color for the butterflies here. This is the Four of Swords. So butterflies, they remind you of flying, of air, so the suit of air, and so on and so forth. There is a way to remind you of the meaning of the card, even though it might be a little bit subtle in some cases, but it still works really well. So as I was saying, this is a fantastic way to use your tarot oracle pairings, but I do recommend for you to not necessarily be an expert, because I don't think there is such a thing as a tarot oracle pairings expert, but at least you know, get to know the decks, get to know what you like, what works for you in a pairings before attempting something like that. On the other hand, when you do reach this level, this is a fantastic way to enrich your practice. I really highly recommend, you know, hanging in there, studying, practicing, trying, and really finding what you like, because it will enrich your practice. It will make you so much more happier to use your decks, but in a very ethical and respectful way. So really, really beautiful. That was it for today. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. It is fantastic that my channel is growing so much. I am so excited by the number of possibilities that I have in front of me of different types of videos, etc. But it's just something that obviously it builds with time. And so I need to be patient, but I'm also very excited by this possibility. So have a great day. Bye.